When I decided to take a year off to spend it with religious, I knew other people who were going to Buddhist monasteries, and kind of the idea that somewhere out there are people doing this really intense thing was to me something of the past. I didn't think or know that there really were still young religious. I mean, this is in 1996. And so in my experience in the United States, I hadn't ever had contact with religious. I had seen one of my friends, her great aunt was a nun. And one time her great aunt visited her house, and we were 7 or 8 years old, and we were called over to greet her. And it was like this dinosaur, this kind of mysterious but strange older person. So I imagined that religious life was something of the past, something kind of poetic, kind of beautiful, strangely demanding, that you could actually lay down your whole life for an ideal. And it kind of reminded me of like the Hasidim or Mennonites or the Amish, like this kind of extreme life in which you were all and only for God. And that idea attracted me in a certain way out of respect. But I definitely didn't think it was something people did or that I could ever do or would do or wanted to do. So when I arrived in France, what I had expected was to find basically little walking dinosaur, kind of fossilized remnants of an old order, of an old experience in the church of consecrated life. And that didn't happen anymore, but that I could glean something from these wise elderly people. And many old sisters are extremely wise and elderly, wonderful people. Like it's pretty hard to beat. We don't have a lot of them around here, but we're working on it. We just need some time. But instead, when I arrived, I was greeted by an Italian sister in her early 30s, and she brought me in, and I met all the other sisters, many of them French, some of them Polish, some Italian, all in their 20s, 30s, 40s. And these were women who were spouses, not widows, which is an expression that our founder often uses when he speaks to us about the spousal life. That when a woman religious forgets that Christ is her spouse, then she forgets who she is. And a lot of the suffering in women's religious life in the 20th century often stems from something of a breakdown in that relationship, in trying to think of Christ as another figure than really the bridegroom of the soul. Their life was a big shock to me, a big surprise to me. And in many ways I expected, and I thought, this must be where I have to enter. I knew one other community in France, and so later discerning it seemed it had to be one or the other, because they're the ones that God had put in my path. And at the same time, there was something more. There was some other way that was restless as far as where I would really become a religious. And that was later during my years in college. So when I met our community, we didn't fit any of the molds of what I had outlaid before. Community from Argentina, missionaries, really poor, working and living in crazy places, under pretty crazy conditions. But by the time I had been in the Middle East, my list was shorter and kind of more intensely boiled down to the essence. And I wanted all those things: to be poor, to be missionary, to live by the essentials in a demanding and confident way. Community is called the Servants of the Lord and the Virgin of Matara. It relates to the cross that we wear of Matara, and we belong to the religious family of the Incarnate Word. So we belong to a family of priests and sisters, missionaries with a fourth Marian vow of consecration, according to Montfort. And we seek to bring Jesus to be known and loved in places where he's not known, either in distant mission countries or in the modern Areopagus of the Western world, or places where many Catholics are awaiting further accompaniment and assistance because there's just so many Catholics.